All right. Good evening and oh wait, I'm Caitlyn. Fuck. Good evening and welcome to Channel 69 News. Tonight we have a tale of compassion, humanism, and the triumph of the human spirit. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 22 of the Thought Patrol podcast. We are working on quickly getting halfway to 50, which is insane. I do not feel like we've been doing it this long. But this week, it is just me and Shawn going back, a throwback to episode 1 with the Star Wars talk. And yeah, how are you doing, Shawn?
I'm doing good. Bringing it full circle because I've been playing Star Wars Battlefront,
Man,
the new one.
Oh, that's nice. What do you think about it?
It's good so far. I've only been playing it for about an hour. I did some of the Starfighter stuff, and that's a bit confusing, but not too difficult to get a hold of. It uses kind of the old Starfighter controls a bit from the PlayStation 2 era days. You know, there was like Jedi Starfighter and Star Wars Starfighter and so on.
Oh,
So that's pretty easy. But it does full 360 combat. It doesn't auto-level your ship or anything like that, which I like. I used a TIE interceptor. Had a lot of fun with that. And then the other part of the beta is you run around Naboo trying to get into the interior, the Ministry of the Palace.
Yeah.
Kill shit.
Yeah. What I've seen from that map looks gorgeous. At least
It is.
like the amount of stuff they have going on, like they have papers like fluttering around, birds moving around. There's so much shit going on. Does it run it? I haven't had a chance to play it, but does it runs at 60, right, on the PlayStation?
I don't think so. It might be. It doesn't feel all that. I mean,
They managed it with the last one, so I'm not sure.
It's hard for me to tell. I mean, it moves smoother than Destiny does, so I would think maybe.
Yeah, here, I'm just gonna Google it to give you a definite answer. I can somewhat tell just because I have the distinct differences between moving from Destiny 2 to like playing games on the PC, but I'll Google it before we. But yeah,
I'm thinking it's possible because the problem is when you get in combat, there's so much shit flying around and the screen shakes and there's debris and everything, and it's pretty. I like it. It's good. I will buy it. I'm probably going to go pre-order it tomorrow or prepay for it or what have you.
It says running at 60 on PS4 Pro, but I don't give a shit about PS4 Pro. Pre-alpha runs at 1060 on PS4 Pro. I just want normal PS4.
Yeah, I don't think that the normal PS4 can do much in the way of 60 frames per second with most things. That's the understanding I've had for some time now.
Well, they managed it with the first game, and the first game was very pretty as well. The first Battlefront, and even though the first Battlefront had its issues, let me see. Actually, I have a YouTube video here. PS4. Yeah, PS4 holds, from what I'm seeing from Digital Foundry, it holds between high 50s to 60. So it does run at 60. It does dip, but it is for the most part holding 60. Where the PS4 Pro has it capped for the most part, but PS4 has some dips every once in a while. Well, I'm getting it to play with you guys. I don't give that much of a shit about the FPS because if I did, I'd be picking up Destiny for the PC, but I'm not. So I put way too much time into that game already. But it's cool to see that they listened to community feedback from the first game. A lot of people had issue with the lack of depth when it came to the multiplayer experience. Although the game itself, they did a fantastic job of recapturing the whole Star Wars feeling, from the sound design to the level design to models, everything. It just felt like Star Wars, which was awesome. But the moment that like nostalgia trip kind of wears off, you're kind of just stuck with a sandbox shooter
Arcade
that has
game.
no progression. So
Yeah, it's more like an arcade game.
yeah, one thing DICE does excellently is their sound design and just putting you in an open battlefield war. Well, that's why they make the Battlefield series, but they do a great job with that, and I felt that definitely in the first Battlefront. It's just it couldn't hold my attention because there wasn't anything to work towards. But looking at it now from what I've seen from gameplay and other stuff, it looks really fucking cool. I've yet to try the beta. Probably after we record this, I might get a couple games in before I go to work tonight, because tonight is the last day. So, which makes me sad, but hey. I think it just went up today for us to play, so we've only had one day to test it out. At least the open beta.
It went up yesterday.
Oh, yesterday?
It was either yesterday or Friday. I don't remember which. It's only open for the weekend.
Okay, because I know they had a closed version of it. So they had like a day or two where it was closed, and then they just opened it to the public recently. So I don't know what time that was, but super excited. That we have, well, we're going to talk a bit more about games coming out. I do have it in the show notes. But how's your week been in life, Shawn? Everything been going good? Been holding in there?
It's been all right. Fairly average.
That's good. Same here. Not much really different. We've been just playing games. Destiny 2. I actually started Divinity Original Sin 2. I've heard that game was very good, and I've sat down, put some time into it, and I am enjoying it quite a bit. It basically a fantasy style XCOM game where it's turn-based, where you have an overview of the field, but I really like the attention to detail. There's some times where animations might not hold up, or sometimes the game doesn't look as pretty, but you can tell a lot of passion was put into this game because there's a lot of attention to detail in both the quests, the story, the writing is very good so far from what I've experienced. Really enjoying it. They've done a good job of kind of capturing me in this world, and I am enjoying pretty much every second of it. I like the fact that depending on what class you are, you have like these passive abilities. Now we'll see. None of this is new. We've seen all this before. This is just a very polished version that incorporates all these good things you see in turn-based RPGs. So, like, say if you're a certain type of race. So, say if you're an undead, which is basically exactly what it sounds. It's like a skeleton. You're not a zombie, or you're a straight-up skeleton that's being held together by magic, because why not? And you have like a couple abilities. So, say if you're locked somewhere, you can break, or you could pick locks using your fingers. I don't know why. That normally wouldn't work in real life, even though we're referring to skeletons, but that's cool. If you're an undead and you're in town, a lot of people will refuse to talk to you because you're undead, you scare them. So if you have an undead party member in your team, or you are undead, you have to cover their face with a helmet or something so people can't see them. Like the skeleton, or like there's a lizard race, and they can dig and stuff like that. I haven't played a lot, so I'm going off of what I've experienced. I know like the elven race, they can actually consume flesh and they could learn the memories of the people they eat, which sounds weird, but it's cool because like you can kill someone or find someone during a quest that was dead, and you can like take a part of their flesh and you can feed it to your elf in your team, or if you are an elf, you can eat it yourself, and you can kind of learn the memories of that person. So there's been some settings where there's one setting during a quest where it was used to solve a murder mystery, which is really cool. And there's just a huge attention to detail. The areas are really pretty. The maps are well designed. So far I'm enjoying the combat. I'm a fan of turn-based combat. I like this one. It's not like Final Fantasy-esque, but it's, like I said, it's more in the vein of XCOM, where you have an overview of the field, you move your units, and everyone kind of has an energy. And then also on top of that, you have like a hit percentage, so you have a chance of hitting, you have skills and all that stuff, and it's just like fantasy, but really good. I see why a lot of people enjoy it. I'm really liking it. Again, the writing's awesome. I've had multiple situations where I fucked myself, so I have to like save constantly, because like say you get off a boat, it crashes, and you get into this town where there's a bunch of other people like yourself, and I'm trying not to spoil anything, and you go to talk to this dude, and he's trapped an elf in a cage, and the elf wants to get out, and the dude that trapped him has reason to believe that the elf stole materials from him, and so you go, and you're trying to convince the dude, and I was trying to talk him into releasing the elf, and I said something like, if you're not letting go of the elf, I'm not leaving either, or some shit like that. And the dude's like, fine with me. And then before I know it, I'm surrounded by 8 dudes. It's only me and my lizard friend, and we just get fucking destroyed, and I have to reload a save. So there's a lot of times where if you're not careful with who you're talking to, you can easily start fights. You have to be very careful what you say. I really like I like that. I enjoy the conversations depending on your origin story, which is kind of like the lore to your character. You can have different things that you say in like narrative situations. The only thing that I find weird is the character I picked. Her name is Lois. I don't know how to pronounce it, but she's like a jester, but she's human, and she's just goofy, and it's weird because she kind of makes me cringe a little bit of the way she acts. Like when I went to talk to that dude about the elf, one of my options was to he was cutting a potato with a knife. One of my options was to go up to him and start juggling the potatoes he was cutting or some shit, and then clap my hands. And I'm like, in what situation would this be fucking necessary to do this when I'm trying to convince him to release this elf or whatever? And I'm sure along the line it might prove necessary at one point or another, but it just crossed me as odd, where it's you're in this serious situation, you have the option to juggle potatoes for somebody. I don't know, but again, definitely enjoying it. Waiting for some games, the rest of the games to come down the line, but besides that, it's just been work. I do have a surprise for everyone listening, but I might have to save that till next week because it's supposed to be a secret right now. But it's not as big as you guys think, but it's a nice little thing that we came across, but I'll just leave it at that. So, Shawn, I'm glad you're doing good. I'm glad you could join me for, again, episode 22 of the Thought Patrol podcast. We come to you again this week. I just thought about it, but we don't really have a main topic now, do we? What I might do. I forgot about that. I was thinking about it earlier, and I didn't know what to put as the main topic. I think I have an idea. Well, I think what I'll do is I was speaking to Sam Harris, which is one of the other kind of guests that come every once in a while, and he wanted me to put a question for the mailbag that we could talk about, but I might just go ahead and make that the main topic instead. So we'll do that instead. Again, you guys know us, 100% professionalism, 20% of the time. And with all the intros out of the way, we're going to move on to the housekeeping. If you guys liked our content, feel free to connect with us. We have a Discord where you could come and chill, stop by, say hello to the hosts and other members of the community that have joined. I think we have 15 members, but 3 active that come and say hi every once in a while. But again, you can make it even more active. If you do have anything that we talk about during this podcast that you would like to talk about with us, have some discussion, feel free to have that discussion in the comments below. I'd be happy to hear from you guys. If you like our content as well, you can go ahead and hit subscribe on YouTube or on the podcasting service that you are listening to us through. We are on Audioboom, iTunes, and Google Play. And YouTube is our home base. We do have a Twitter as well, at ThoughtPatrolPD, where you can send us mailbag questions, check up on updates, either when we start streaming, stuff around those. And finally, if you do really like us enough to do us a solid, feel free to leave an iTunes review. It will get read on the podcast, and we will shower you with praise. So, with all the boring shit out of the way, we're going to move on to our Germany or Florida segment. And we got an interesting one this week, because it's only 2 of us, and we're going to have kind of a roulette of rolls going off as we do this one. So, we're going to do our curtain call. So, Shawn, now I've read a bit of this, but I want you to, the article itself is, we have, after a crash, cops deliver a shaken yet edible pizza. Delivery driver seriously injured in accident, so police finished his job. And I want you to let me know what you were thinking for the voices, because you wrote it, so you had a voice in mind. Is there anything in specific I should know while I'm reading this?
Well, I imagine the anchor, because Caitlyn kind of owns the anchor. So I imagine the anchor with Caitlyn's typical fuck you kind of attitude, like that whole kind of bon vivant, whatever, laissez-faire kind of
just
thing.
monotone, why am I here? Kind of. I got you.
Bored with life, annoyed by everything.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
And then the reporter, the way you normally handle the reporter. And then the other ones, the paramedic professional and and what did I name him? Mr. Almorte. Suffering. Yeah, I kind of liked his name, but we don't have enough people in here to catch the name. Did you read his name?
Yeah, I get it. Do you want to be Almorte? I think you'd be a good job being a dying human being. Sounds like a good...
Yeah, that'd be fine.
I could be anchor reporter. Would you want to do... How about we do this? I'll do anchor reporter, and you can be Morte and the paramedic. So we'll both be like somewhat talking to ourselves.
And the officer, I suppose.
Oh shit, there's an officer too. Oh yeah.
The other parts are smaller. The anchor and the reporter do the majority of the.
He literally says one thing. Yeah, you'll be the officer. Oh, maybe two. Two things. My bad. All right. So again, those of you tuning in, listening. We do this every week. Well, we're going to try to. So we might eventually run out of content, but this is Germany or Florida segment where we find a interesting article off the internet that either comes out of Germany or Florida. You guys will we will perform for you on stage, and you will decide whether or not it comes from Germany or Florida. Both got their own selection of crazies. I'm sure you might have heard of things, especially more Florida, but Germany has its own fair share. So, with that out of the way, the curtain call out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get right on into this with our Germany or Florida breaking news. And you know what's good? Since no one's here, I don't have to deal with Caitlyn doing the bullshit. I don't have to deal with that. It's not here this week.
I kind of like it.
Oh man. All right. Good evening and I'm Caitlyn. Fuck. Good evening and welcome to Channel 69 News. Tonight we have a tale of compassion, humanism, and the triumph of the human spirit. Here with more is our favorite dude, Kyle. Thanks, Caitlyn. And I'm here. I'm going to leave it as Caitlyn because that sounded just like her. Thanks, Caitlyn. And I am near the studio with a young man, Termin Almorte, who has been in a terrible vehicular accident. Apparently, he was on his way to deliver a pizza when a midget, little person? I don't know, fuck it. Anyway, a midget tried to run across the road. Mr. Almorte tried to swerve away and was T-boned by a truck carrying 4-foot, two-way purple jelly dongs. There are sparkly purple penises everywhere. Unfortunately, Mr. Almorte was thrown 400 feet from his vehicle and has been gravely injured. He is currently being treated on site for fear of moving him causing more damage. I will see if I could get a word in. I have just received word that we have a guest witness coming in here in a moment to discuss the accident. He is a police officer that was present at the scene and apparently has some food that I ordered. Yay. Yes, yeah, I'm not going to try with that. Anyhow, Mr. Almorte, how are you feeling? You did well not to hit that little person. You are a hero.
She was a midget. I thought she was a kid.
Loud. Holy shit, you pulled an Antony, shoved that mic down your throat. Oh man, that's you still, mister.
Sir, as a licensed paramedic, I'm going to have to respectfully tell you to fuck off and stand back. We are trying to save this man's life!
Yes, I understand. Just one more question, Mr. Almorte.
We're losing him! Get the paddles!
Well, that sounds lovely. I have almost lost my appetite. You have it here sounding happy, but I don't think I can manage that. And look, my pizza is here. Hello, officer. I understand you were near an accident nearby when it occurred, and you rescued my pizza. Thank you.
Yes, we saw a delivery driver avoid hitting a person crossing the road. I was so inspired by his bravery that I decided to finish his delivery.
Your compassion and courage knows no bounds, officer. You rescued my pizza. You're a true American hero.
It's all in a day's work, ma'am. It's all. Thank you.
Excuse me, Caitlyn. We have a man dying here. I think there are more important. Anchovies. So good. Correction. I'm getting news and dead. And you, wait, what? Nobody likes anchovies. Yes, that was delicious. Thanks again to this brave officer and to the manufacturers of Purple Dildos and everyone who has contributed to me receiving this delicious anchovy limburger and asparagus pizza. Good night, all. See you next time on Channel 69 News. Oh, God. Oh.
No pizza delivery drivers were harmed during the making of this skit.
Yes. Except the one that was launched 400 feet. That was good. I think we did good there. Caitlyn's gonna listen back to it and just get fucking. I'm gonna hear back from this. That's exact. See, you get what you give. You get what you give. You get shit for putting shit.
I think she does a good job. I like her
stoicism.
Disparaging.
So yeah, we'll come back to the answer to the Germany or Florida segment after we go over our box office tops. Our box office tops.
Yeah, see?
See? Yeah. So, oh shit. Oh yeah, okay. I thought I didn't grab them. Man, I thought I fucked this shit up royally. So, again, moving on to our box office tops, we go over the top 5 movies of the last week, see what's been making some money. We have number 1 is American Made with a 22 million weekly gross.
Tom Cruise looking like a lesbian.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard that. I don't. What can Tom Cruise sell anymore besides Mission Impossible? Like, I've heard that it just wasn't a good movie. So, again, that's all I've heard, though. I haven't seen it personally, so take that with a what's the term? Take that with a grain of salt. There we go.
Grain of salt. Yeah.
So it's in its first.
Blade Runner's out this weekend.
It is. That does not sit on this because I go weekly, so that will appear next week, I guess. I wonder if we should do weekend. I don't know. But, yeah, Blade...
I really wanted to see it. I wanted to do, like, a birthday thing where I was, like, get people together. And for the last 3 months, I've told everyone I know in the area, I'm like, yeah, I really want to go see this kind of, like, as a birthday thing. And I was kind of, like, dropping the hints, like, hey, you guys should be like, hey, Shawn, let's go see this movie. Dude, I got no phone calls, no text messages, no emails. It is a fucking desert. Aww. Every person forgot. And I said it, and I would paid attention just to see. I said it 3 separate times to every person I know that is even slightly mobile in the area, including people that I don't get to talk to very often, and none of them remembered.
Aww.
So, I am well loved.
It's okay, Shawn. I love you.
I love you too, sweetie.
Oh, okay. So, I've heard that I've heard people say it's one of the best sequels ever made, but that could be taken with, a grain of salt. But I've heard it's really good, and it does well to kind of uphold with the original set in place. So, sounds interesting. I've heard it's long as fuck. It's like a 2-hour, 40-minute movie, though. So, that's a big ordeal, especially for, like, Blade Runner. I mean, the trailers make it look action-y, but I'm assuming it's part of that kind of postmodernism, lots of talking, panning shots of a cool-looking city kind of thing, like the first one was.
Postmodern, it's noir.
Close enough. Well, it has elements of postmodernism with the whole, like, existentialism, what makes you human, what defines a human, do robots have a soul, stuff like that. Man, I hit like the same octave every time I finished that sentence. That was weird. Sorry.
Yeah, replicants aren't technically robots. They're more like genetically engineered. I mean, they're semi-mechanical, you could say.
So would you say,
but
like
in the
androids?
Film, replicants.
Like an android instead?
They're manufactured humans. Okay. But they're designed with a shelf life, and they're designed to be able to do different things. There's combat models and space models and so on. There was one kind that was designed with 4 hands instead of feet, and they only work in 0G.
That sounds like...
So that they...
I was gonna say that sounds like something you do to perform a kink. It's one of those kink robots. You know, you
Yeah,
could do.
they're basically engineered slaves. I
Yeah.
mean, they think, they feel like humans, they bleed, but their skin has a serial number. Their organs have serial numbers. Their eyes are created,
Yeah.
but they're created from organic material. So if you think of an organic machine, then you're kind of leaning more towards the right direction.
Okay. It's not what I thought. That's what androids were. Oh, whatever. It doesn't matter.
So an android is well, no. I mean, a cyborg is part machine and part alive. It's part
Let's see
artificial,
what
part
the internet
living.
has to say.
Androids are more like Data from Star
I
Trek.
don't want the fucking phone. Android.
Vision is an android. Androids are self-aware robots.
Android robot sci-fi wiki. An android is a humanoid robot or synthetic organism designed to look and act like a human, especially when with having a body having a flesh-like resemblance. That's
But
sci-fi.
it doesn't say it's made of flesh. It's all androids are made from artificial materials, whereas the replicants are organic. You can have sex with them. They bleed. They have a pulse. But they're not born.
Ooh, they have pictures here, and I am confirmed spooked because these pictures look fucking weird of like androids.
They might have some technical stuff in them, but the way I've always understood it was that they were living creatures. They just weren't human.
Yeah. I just keep getting the... Oh, wow, they even have types. A synthetic human being distinguishes between 3 types of androids based on their body's composition. We have the mummy type, where androids are made of dead things or stiff, inanimate, natural material, such as mummies, puppets, dolls, and statues. The golem type, androids made from flexible, possibly organic material, including golems and homunculi. And the automaton type, androids which are a mix of dead and living parts, including automatons and robots. There you go. That's from Eric G. Wilson. I don't know what he has done. Thank you, Eric. Thanks, Eric. I'm glad.
Eric, the authority on androids. If you ever want anything to do with androids, you go to Mr. Wilson.
Yes, and leave it to the Asian countries to be like the leading thing in android technology, such as Japan and South Korea. Man, if we do get into this point, they'd probably be the first one to kink up everything, because that's what Japan does.
Sex droids?
Yeah, boy.
That's a common sci-fi thing.
All right, with that out of the way. There you go. There's your factoid for the day from the Thought Patrol podcast. Tell your parents, let them know. Ooh, excuse me. Oh, let's actually get to the movie. So we had number 1, we had American Made. Number 2, we have Kingsman: The Golden Circle, which grossed $22 million this week, sitting at $71 million in total with a budget of $104 million. It is in its second week. At number 3, we still have It going strong at $21 million, sitting at $295 million in total with a $35 million budget. So we're almost at 100 times its budget that it's made back, and it's on its 4th week. At number 4, we had the Lego Ninjago movie sitting at $13 million with a total of $37 million, and its budget still is not on the website that I used to pull these facts. So I don't know. They're hiding it from us. It is in its second week. At number 5, we have the new release Flatliners, which has done horribly at $8 million. That movie did not look too good. But the good news... It was
supposed to be a sequel, and then they turned it into a reboot, which is stupid.
Yeah, and it just looked... But I was talking to my father about it, and he said he saw the original. Or I don't know if he said he saw it or if he heard about it, but that it wasn't initially a horror spin. Is that right? On the original Flatliners?
No, it wasn't. It was a psychological thriller because you had a group of med students that were experimenting with what it was like to be on the other side. So this one guy flatlined himself for like 15 seconds and he had a vision. And then the rest of them started doing it for longer and longer. And at first it was like this magical experience crossing over. But then they started realizing that they were bringing back something with them. And in the original film, it wasn't supernatural. What it was is when you came back, you'd bring basically you had a psychosis, and whatever unresolved big sin that you regretted in your life, you attacked yourself with. So you could injure yourself, you could kill yourself because you'd basically have these hallucinations that whatever it was that you did wrong was basically you were visiting it back on yourself, and psychosomatically they were hurting themselves. Now
Oh.
they saw it as like ghosts or visions of the past or whatnot was harming them, but in reality it was their mind harming them. And so to protect themselves, they basically had to make peace with something and forgive themselves for whatever horrible thing they did. And so you had kind of a climactic countdown to the end as they were rushing to try and kind of clear their conscience, so to speak, so that their mind wasn't attacking itself. And it was, it was more like that. I mean, when I was a kid, I loved that fucking movie. I mean, I didn't adore it. It's not one of the best movies ever, but I really liked it enough to buy it and to kind of hold it in a treasured little place. But when you go back and watch it, it's still good. But I mean, you could sit there and poke fun at it, and it's not the best movie ever, but it was pretty decent. But it's got like this legendary status, kind of like Lost Boys does, and some other '80s iconic films. And Flatliners was also one of those ensemble pieces. It had like a shit ton load of big time actors at the time. It had Kiefer Sutherland, Kevin Bacon, Julia Roberts, Oliver Platt, and the younger Baldwin brother. I don't remember what the fuck his name was. I think that's everybody. But the new one didn't get the best of current talent. It just has a bunch of, I mean, I don't know who's in it, but I would have heard who was in it if it was an ensemble piece. And I don't think they did that. I think they went the horror route and just grabbed a bunch of cheap actors and stuck them in a movie and then tried to make it stylish. And you also have to think that the original Flatliners was Schumacher back when he was good. Schumacher also worked with, can't remember his fucking name right now, but this other big time Hollywood guy to make Lost Boys, and he had that same kind of dark style that he used with I think it was it wasn't Tony Scott, I don't remember what the fucking guy's name was right now, but he back in the 80s Schumacher had style, and he did good dark movies, and he did interesting kind of spins on things, and he just went fucking bananas with Batman and killed himself. But back in the day he was good, and Flatliners has that Schumacher style that's really, really interesting. But I haven't seen anything on the new one. And if they didn't do a direct sequel, bring the cast back, or somehow bring a freshness to the story, it wasn't the kind of story that had any room for more story. You know what I'm saying? I'm one of those people that never mind sequels. I want stories to continue on forever. I don't want series that I like to end. I don't want movie series that I like to end. I want them to keep telling me stories. But Flatliners is a universe where you couldn't possibly come up with an interesting extension to that universe. It was about these 5 characters. They traveled their path. It was done. They learned their lesson. You move on. Anything else you do is just cleanse, fold, repeat. And that's dumb.
Yeah. I think it's just trying to do that thing where, hey, let's take something that was somewhat popular or had a cult following and try and make
capitalize.
Make bank on some nostalgia trips. But it looks like the community said, "Go fuck yourself, Sony," which is a studio that made the movie, and it only made about $8 million. But the thing
Sony's been struggling.
Yeah, the thing is it only had a budget of 19, so it will probably make its budget back. Probably won't be seeing a sequel. It was only the first week, but for it to be sitting at number 5 in the first week, I guess isn't horrible. But again, it doesn't look like many people are going to the movies if sitting at number 1 is 22 million. So
I would not want to be the movie that came out on a weekend where it was still running, Kingsman was still running, and Blade Runner just dropped. For that to come out, that was just a fucking death sentence to it anyway.
Don't forget.
That's the kind of movie I would have done in January.
Don't forget the Lego Ninjago movie. Sitting at number 4.
I don't know what's going to happen to Sony. I mean, Sony, it owns Columbia, it owns in TriStar, and those, used to do interesting lineage films and unusual films, and kind of came out with some iconic classics. And with Sony's consistent failures, the only thing that they had over the summer was that emoji piece of crap that won by default, and Spider-Man. And I don't know if either of those, because they were partnered, remember, so they get some of that money from Spider-Man. So I don't know if that's enough to save them, because they've been reporting record losses for a while now.
I think, I don't know, because It's weird because it's not just, I don't know where the movie studio will go, but it's obviously Sony. They have a lot of other sections that are doing well. I don't know what I'm saying. Don't listen to me. It's a bad thing to tell an audience of a podcast. But, so that's it at number 5, Flatlighters. I don't know if from now on I might just pull the weekend rankings instead. It would make more sense instead of the weekly rankings since we've moved it to Sunday now. So now we have the full weekend we'll be able to play out before we actually record the podcast. So that might be a better idea moving forward.
There is something that when we're done with news, I'd like to bring up and have a small discussion with you regarding SquareSoft and what the president just recently announced.
Okay. Yeah, we'll do that
about 2 weeks ago
because we kind of have we'll have like a what's it called, a pseudo main topic, because I'm gonna make Sam Harris's question the main topic. We'll talk about it a bit, and then we'll do that after we talk about what you have to bring up. We were going to review something today, but I was hoping Caitlyn would be here so that we could have 2 people talk about it. And that was Bastard, which is a webcomic series. We might do it next week. So if you guys want to be there for that and listen in already knowing what the hell is going on, I'd recommend. It's very good. I recommend it. It's a quick read. It's only like 90-something chapters, so you can get through it in a couple days. Very tense. It's a thriller about a boy who helps his father commit murders. So that's all I'm going to say about it. But he doesn't do it on purpose. You'll see his kind of psychosis as you go through it, how he feels about it, and the kind of that moral dilemma and struggle from growing up around death your entire life. So it's very interesting, very well written, good characters. And if you guys do want to check it out, you can read it on your phone. All you got to do is go on the App Store, search up Line Webcomics, and it's the most popular one on the app. It's called Bastard. So very good. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Caitlyn has been trying to get me to read it forever, and I finally did, and we just kind of gushed over it for the last week. So with that out of the way, the answer to Germany or Florida. So what do you think, Shawn? What do you think that beautiful article came from?
Delivering a pizza. My first instinct was Florida, so I'm going to say Germany.
And you are right, it is Germany. So there you go.
Yeah, reason being is because if a cop did that delivery here, they would get in trouble for it.
Yeah. It never said that he got in trouble for it or didn't get in trouble for it, so we still don't really know. But it just said that he delivered the pizza. I didn't actually read the article. I just pulled the headlines, because there's no really point in reading the article because we just kind of make our own shit up. But there's no point in having it influence the skit. So
plus, I would have been less likely to add jelly dongs otherwise.
So that is the answer. Let us know what you thought it was in the comments below. What you think. Have you gone and seen any movies, you guys tuning in? We want, if possible, I know you guys are busy listening out there. Interaction is key here. We'd like to hear from you guys. And I'm not trying to annoy you guys with talk, but we would appreciate just to kind of hear from the people that listen to us, see what you guys are like. We recently passed like 1,400 listens on Audioboom, which is really cool. So that's progressing farther than YouTube is, and YouTube has Let's Plays as well. But on top of that, as a segue, if you guys do want to check out some of the Let's Plays that we have done, or see some more content from us, including the After Hours, which will be on YouTube only moving forward, until maybe later, we'll see what happens. Feel free to check out our YouTube channel. Again, I'm doing a Let's Play with Caitlyn. We have a couple other Let's Plays. If you guys want to recommend something that we can play and record, get some gameplay out for it, it will all be through that channel. So, again,
I got you a present, Kyle.
Aw, what'd you get? Besides making
I
noise?
ordered there are these, you know what Nendoroids are?
Yes.
There was a set of Nendoroids from ReZero. There's 2 sets. One of them had one of each of the female characters, and another one was an all-Rem set. And
Of
I
course.
ordered, and the box that you get in the shop has 6 figures in it, and then you just open the box, and people either buy the whole box or they reach in and pick out one of the blind draw boxes, and then they go home with it because the boxes are sealed.
Yeah.
Well, when you buy the entire crate, which isn't big, I mean, it's the size of a baseball card box, the kind that's full of cards.
Yeah.
When you buy the crate, it comes with 6. So you're guaranteed to get the whole set of 5, and there's a double. So instead of buying them separately, which would have been like $25 a piece, and these things are not large, like the size of a 50-cent piece.
Yeah.
They're not huge. Instead of buying them separately, I bought the box with 2 goals in mind. My first goal was that I would be able to get a whole set of little Rem Nendoroids. And the second goal was that I would have a double that I could share with my friend who said Rem is his number 1 waifu. So I have a little blind draw box that I did open because I was curious of Sumi, but she's still wrapped up. I just wanted to see which one the extra one was. And you have a little Rem who's kneeling with her hands in her lap looking all kawaii. That I have to figure out how to mail to you.
Okay. Sounds good. I appreciate it. Now, Rem being ultimate waifu status might have slipped in the rankings with all these other shows that I've been watching. Shawn, man, first of all, I appreciate that. And we're in fucking fall season, dude. We got all these shows coming out now. I've been watching a couple, and I've only watched 2 so far because I'm doing it like at work when I have time in between breaks and lunch. I watched a little bit of the first episode of Black Clover before I just completely turned it off because it was pissing me off. And then what was the other one? It's called The Recovery of an MMO Junkie, which is like a slice of life kind of, which I've somewhat enjoying. But I have a couple other down. There's this other podcast I listen to called the Anime Addicts Anonymous, and they do their own selections where they watch all the PVs for the season, and they go through and pick shows that they think are interesting, and they kind of talk about them. They do impressions on them, and then eventually review them. So I usually adhere to what they like because they're older fans and they're kind of not with the bullshit moe garbage stuff. So we'll see what happens. But I'm super excited. Sad to see that me and Caitlyn finally caught up on Boku no Hero. But so we're done with that for now until season 3. But man, that was a good end to season 2. I thought the last episode was going to be just kind of chill, but it kind of just set up things for the future, and I'm excited. It's a really good show. Man, I really like that show. The music, I think one of the biggest things behind it that makes me enjoy it so much is the fucking music is so good. The writing is good too. And I like the characters. You know how hard it is to make a show where every girl is best girl? That is a feat all on its own. Oh, send me a picture. That's adorable. Yeah, I don't actually have an Nendoroid, so that'd be the first one I'd own. Go right in the bookshelf over there. Actually, I might. I think I have an Umaro-chan Nendoroid. It came in one of the loot boxes. I never touched it because I think that shows cancer.
If you don't care about the box, I might send it in a bubble wrap envelope.
That's fine. It should be okay. It's light, so it won't damage itself with its weight. As long as nothing falls on it. Yeah, that's fine with me. Those are the cheapest that you could find, those little bubble wrap things, too. The boxes get expensive, especially if you're just sending a little thing. So.
Yeah, the box isn't very large, but yeah. Okay, so what is next?
That was that. So we hope to bring Bastard to you next week. If it sounds interesting at all, again, it's free to read. It reads like you would read a comic book. It's all in English. And it's quite a thrilling read, to say the least. I enjoyed it a bit. So we're going to move on to our new segment. Talk about some news. What's been going on over the past week. Bring some somewhat interesting articles we found to you guys. And just keep you in the know for now. So, at the first article, we have Nintendo pushes Switch production to 2 million a month. Now, this is news. So take it. This is news from the internet, mind you. So we don't know how factual it might actually be. But this is in general Nintendo pushing to 2 million a month, so it includes all countries. We still don't know how many will be sent to the States, but we have the Digitimes reports an increase that will be meant to finally help meet the high demand for the consoles in Asia, as well as meet Nintendo's target production numbers. In just 2017, the company is aiming to reach 20 million units. But even with the increase in production, Nintendo Switch consoles are still in short supply in Japan and won't be available in Taiwan until this December. The console is expected to launch in China in 2018, and with the recent support of Tencent, the move to get the console in the country could be very lucrative. You're breathing there, mister. I hear you breathing.
Am I?
Yeah, a little close. Too close. As far as how the increase will affect the Americas and Europe, time will tell, but we're hopeful for this holiday season. And then I got Shawn with his little notes here. We got motherfuckers need to produce more SNES Classics, NES Classics, and fucking Amiibos. Dicks, and then a frowny face.
Angry frowny face.
Angry frowny face. Man, you even put a nose in there. That's dedication right there. Commitment to the pain.
Fucking bastards.
So, now again, like I said, this 2 million a month number, we don't know how it's going to affect the States and the European market yet, because this is mostly for the launching in the Asian countries. So, I mean, it's a shitty situation because Nintendo likes to. It kind of feels like here we're going to show that we can throw away potential money in order to inflate our market. And that just kind of feels like a big fuck you to the people that still don't have one, even though it's been out since March. Shouldn't take this long to acquire a system. But again, we see it with the SNES Classics now, which they promised wouldn't be as bad. But hey, look at that! Can't find an SNES Classic anywhere. I work at Walmart. We got fucking one of them. And it was gone. NES Classic the same way. And you know that the excuse that we received from Nintendo is the fact that the materials were hard to come by when it comes to SNES and NES Classics. Now, the thing about that is it could be believable if they didn't say that, hey, we're going to start reselling NES Classics. So there's no way in hell that they're having production issues along the lines of sourcing materials because they're about to relaunch the pieces of shit. So they're just, again, we just have to kind of own up to it. But again, the thing with gaming that makes it interesting, or the video game market, is you have people that do follow games. You have people that are in a decent amount, or have a decent amount of knowledge when it comes to the market, things that companies pull shit to look for. And then, I'm not trying to sound elitism or anything like that, because I'm not one of those people. And then you have people on the other end of the spectrum, which are people that do not follow games, do not know about the companies, but will every once in a while will buy a system. And what sells them on these things is the fucking nostalgia. Now, they're cool. The SNES Classic is cool, but it's the fact that it's so unavailable and people scalp them, and then you see them on the internet for fucking $600. Now, I'm going to say a little side tangent here. All right, mini rant. If you go out and purposely buy more systems than you need to then turn around and sell them for a higher value than retail on the internet, kindly go fuck yourself. That's all I got to say. Because that is rude. Now, I know people trying to make their money, and you woke up super early to go to Walmart to go buy 3 SNES Classics so that no one else can have one, because you're going to go sell them for double their price on the internet. Hey, fine. Business venture. You saw an opportunity, you took it. But I'm just saying, that's rude. That's all I'm trying to say. That, especially with things that we know like this can be scalped easily, and because you know you'll make money off them because they're in such high demand, it's a bitch move. That's all I got to say. It's not nice to do. And one of the management members at the place I work at was trying to do that. He was trying to call around and find another one so he could go ahead and scalp it and sell it on the internet. And I'm like, man, this dude's an ass. It's just, again, think about you're taking that away from someone, and then on top of that, salt in the wound, you're then charging someone else like a fucking almost a 40%, 50% markup so they can have one. It just doesn't, it rubs me the wrong way. And it's just, oh God, it makes me mad. That's all I'm going to say. And again, it's Nintendo's fault because we're not getting the demand but they don't get, they're just throw them out there and they're going to watch the world burn because they know people are going to want them no matter what. And they can afford to not sell as many because they're fucking Nintendo and re-release them later or something and just keep inflating the demand until either they just release a bunch and flood the market or just leave it like that, and they know every time they decide to release something like that that's just bundled with nostalgia that they'll still continue to make money off it no matter what. But man, that shit. It's a rough situation because everyone's trying to make money. We're going to let you know, we're going to keep it straight here, that businesses, their main goal, they don't really give a shit about you. Their main goal is to make money. In a way, they give a shit about you because they see you as PR, and the better you think of them, the more money they'll make. But in all reality, they don't really give a shit about you. And it sucks to say, but that's just how the world is. It's capitalism at its finest. And that was my mini rant. I'm going to leave it at that. Tell us how you feel about this. I want to hear from you guys. What you think about Nintendo doing this shit. Continuing to do this shit. Because it's not like it's the first time. We saw it with the NES Classic. We saw it with the Switch. We're still seeing it with the Switch. And now we're seeing it with the SNES Classic. So, it's just... We saw it with the Amiibos, like Shawn was saying. So, it does... It's rough. It's a rough situation. So, getting that out of the way, that was the sad article. We're going to move on to... Well, it started out happy because they're supposed to be making more, but it's going because they're launching in like 2 other countries. But we're going to move on to GTA 5 is going to be... it has... shown us an update detailing the next season of GTA Online, what they're going to be releasing for Grand Theft Auto 5, new content for their online service, which has just been their hugest cash cow. But they obviously want to keep it still going, and I think the thing with it is even after Red Dead 2 comes out, I think what's going to happen is they're still going to be doing GTA Online stuff. Because GTA Online is so customizable, and that becomes hard when you go into the past. Like you can't slap nitrous and a decal on your horse in fucking Red Dead Redemption 2. So I could see them doing heists and stuff and finding ways to like build buildings for capital or whatever in their online mode. But the fact that GTA, since it's being set in modern times, is so customizable, and there's so many things that you can do and things you can charge, and stuff to have players to work for, and you can allow a bike to have a rocket launcher on the back of it that you can like soar through the air. You can't do something like that in Red Dead Redemption. So I can't see them stopping this anytime soon, as long as they have as many players as they do have and people are willing to buy their stupid-ass microtransaction shark cards. They're going to keep making money off of it. So, again, man, I'm all about these mini rants today. Rockstar has announced many new additions that are on the way in the coming months, including new modes, vehicles, and the much-anticipated Transform races. Transform races are the next evolution of stunt racing. You race in land, sea, and air vehicles across Los Santos' streets, waters, and skies. The races will feature new and unique stunt tracks that will allow for transitions that run the gamut of vehicle types. I don't know what that is. So players can expect to race in supers and off-roaders, boats, jet skis, planes. My goodness. Planes, helicopters, and even do some skydiving, all in the same race. Transform races will launch later this month, with the race creator getting updates to accommodate these types of races later in the year. There are also 2 new modes coming. Condemned mode makes one player a target until they kill an opponent, making them the target, and dogfight mode will take players to the skies in an aerial battle to the death. So they continue to expand upon GTA Online's features, giving the people that enjoy the game and play it regularly more stuff to do. I mean, I dropped GTA Online a long fucking time ago. I think the last update we ended up playing was the one where they introduced the like running drugs and stuff around, which wasn't that long ago. But I mean, if you have a group of people to play it with, I could see it being fun. But I don't know. I just got bored of it. Didn't feel like playing anymore. What about you, Shawn? What do you think about it?
I got bored with Grand Theft Auto after San Andreas. The only reason I even have Grand Theft Auto 5, is because it came with the PlayStation. I tried selling it for like 3 months, and I had one bum lead, and then finally I gave up, and somebody's like, hey, why don't you open it? We'll play online. And then he played with me 3 times, and then I lost contact with him.
Rip.
So I fucking opened it, we played, and then I got a response back. Somebody's like, hey, I'll buy it for $60, dude. I can't find it anywhere. It's sold out everywhere. I'm like, God damn it. So, well, pardon my language. I don't want to take anyone's name in vain, but that was frustrating.
Yeah, I feel you. The problem I had with it is that I played the whole story on 360, which was enjoyable. I mean, it wasn't the best. And then I played a little bit of online on the 360, and I don't know why, but I picked it up for PS4. And I played a little bit of it, and we did have our times with it. We did a couple of the heists, but it was kind of like a raid in Destiny. It's just hard to get everyone on at the same time, and the matchmaking was abysmal because you sit there for 40 minutes. I don't know if they fixed it because this was a long time ago. You'd sit there for 40 minutes, and then you'd finally find someone, you'd fail once, and they'd leave. And you're like, fuck you, you piece of garbage. So it's just we never really got enough people together at the same time to do some of the more fun events, which again reminds me a lot of Destiny. All right, moving on to next.
On the gaming news, if you have PSN, the Amnesia Collection is free.
Oh yes,
I have no idea why, but it's free, and that's awesome.
Yeah, the first game was really good. Machine of Pigs was okay, but
Machine of Pigs was
okay. It was okay. It was mediocre for a game.
So average.
I did like the first one a lot, but I wonder if they'll have like the modding. I don't know if they have the modding stuff, because a lot of what I enjoyed from the first Amnesia was the custom stories that they did, and you get your memes every once in a while too, because people made funny maps. I enjoyed that a lot. That was when I've talked about this before on the podcast, but when I would go to my grandmother's house to play on the computer, because she had a better computer than all of us for some reason, so I played Amnesia. When I was into Minecraft, I did that. But when we were at home, it was like the kind of mid-tier games that you can play with others. Like we did play, my God, I hate to admit it, but we did play Roblox when it started out, and we played a lot of RuneScape. I don't hate to admit that. I enjoyed RuneScape quite a bit, but that was like the poor man's MMO. But I did enjoy it.
Wasn't Roblox a browser game?
Yes. It has you could have downloaded something to make it easier to run, but it is a browser game. It's weird because I think from what I've heard, you could play it on mobile phones too now, so you could play it on the go, which is interesting. But yeah, it's like a content created where everyone makes their own content kind of game. So I don't know.
I remember YouTube exploded with like tons and tons of videos of elementary schoolers playing it.
Yeah, I got actually, because you can, again, you build a map, and I had a map that was called Destroy Bob, I think. And I think I might have told this story once before, but it actually hit the front page of the content on the site. But the thing about it is I was young, it happened at night. So overnight, I had the works in this fucking little map thing. All it was really simple. You'd spawn, and there'd be a giant Roblox character, but he was made out of destructible materials. And so people would just shoot and break him. And then there was commands that if you were to type like /reset, he'd rebuild himself and you could blow him up again. And it'd fit like 4 people and everyone just has fun destroying him, kind of. And so I had the works in that. Like you can like make clothes to sell as well on like the market, and people can buy them with like the in-game currency, or there's like a secondary currency as all games have, and you could buy that with real money. So I made the shirt cost real money, and all the money that people would spend to buy that shirt would go to my account. So it was like a transfer of real money, almost like a virtual currency that you'd find in other games like that. And the thing was the shirt, its goal was it would open up a room to the right of where you spawned, where you'd get like special weapons that do different things, but the shirt didn't work. and I was asleep. So I fucking I felt so bad because I logged on the next morning and I was getting all these hate messages like, I bought your shirt, it didn't work, I couldn't get into the room, and just people blowing up my fucking message box. And I felt like such an asshole because I basically duped all these people out of their money and there was no refund service. So I felt so fucking bad for the next week. And then it was only there for a night and then it fell off. And they also had a thing kind of like YouTube where based on how many plays you get on your level, you get the in-game currency and the paid currency as well. So I don't know why I remember all this, but I had a lot of fun in that game. Now it's just a fucking living meme. But yeah, it was good. Shawn, you there?
A little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
I don't know. I was hearing weird static coming from you. Again, we've been quite rife. I'm gonna try and edit it all out, but we've been quite rife with some audio issues tonight. So hopefully it won't be too bad for you guys. But just keep that in mind, and we do apologize for anything that does get through. Something I can't really fix. Yeah. So moving on to our next article, we do have the 2017 games with gold for Xbox. We have for October, we have the Xbox One. We have Gone Home, which runs from the 1st to the 31st. We have the Turing Test, which goes from the 16th to November 15th. And we have Oxenfree going from September 16th to October 15th. I don't know why I read that wrong. And on the 360, we have Rayman 3 HD going from the 1st of October to the 15th. And Medal of Honor Airborne going from the 16th of October to the 31st. So those are some free games. You have an Xbox and you're tuning in. Get those. Just add them to your library, so you have a game. If you're bored one day, you have something you can download and play. They're free, so why not? Although doesn't Xbox do that thing where if you're not a Prime member, like PlayStation does, you can't play the content that you got for free or some shit like that? Don't they do that too? I don't remember.
I have no idea.
I
wonder why we don't talk about the PlayStation Plus games.
Well, I was looking for them.
I can tell you.
One. Yeah, go ahead. Throw them at me.
You have Riggs Mechanized Combat for VR, which is, yay if you had the $400 to buy all that shit. So super, we got Riggs. You have That's You, which has been free for months. That's really whatever. You have Metal Gear Solid 5, Phantom Pain, and the Amnesia Collection. You also have Skyforce Anniversary and Hue, which is I have no idea what the fuck that is. Might be a puzzle game of some kind. Let's go ahead and look. Let's look at Hue, H-U-E. It is a puzzle game with balloons and boxes, and it looks horrible.
Awesome. Metal Gear Solid's pretty solid pickup. For free.
And let's look at Skyforce.
You can see titties
for our audience.
If you like
you can
boobs.
see titties.
Well, not full titty, but you got quiet.
Skyforce is a top-down shoot 'em up. Okay, so it's like a Skyforce. Skyforce. It's like a super destructive style arcade visual something or another. It's a shooter. It's a horizontal shooter. I'm sorry, a vertical shooter.
Okay.
And if it doesn't do what Treasure does, then it's not good. So we'll see, because Treasure makes the good ones.
All right. So those are your games. Again, just add them to your library. Even if you don't download them, you have them there. They're connected to your account forever. As long as you have Gold or PlayStation Plus, you should be able to download them and enjoy them. So you never know, because we'll always have, as if one thing's always certain, we'll always have good games, but we'll always have areas of just absolutely nothing to do, knowing video games. So definitely keep that in mind. It's always a good idea to pick up these games. There's no reason not to. So we have
a little known fact, though, you have a license when you get them. Those licenses expire. So the ones that I got like a year or two ago that I still play, the licenses are about to wear out, and then I won't be able to play them anymore.
That's interesting.
Oh, and for race fans, the Gran Turismo trial demo is up as well.
For PlayStation? Oh, that is only PlayStation, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Sony makes that. It's really good. Really good.
Yeah, those games are always...
Forza.
they're at least pretty. So, I mean, I've never played them, but I'm not a big fan of racing games. Moving forward, we have Destiny 2 is getting seasons. So Bungie has announced that Destiny 2 will have seasons. That's some quotations. Destiny 2 already mentioned seasons in the clan settings in-game, but we don't know much about them. That's set to change soon, as Bungie will discuss seasons in Destiny 2 during TwitchCon this month. Bungie will hold a panel titled The Seasons of Destiny on Friday, October 20th, starting at 4:30 p.m. Pacific Time. During the discussion, Bungie will talk about what seasons mean for Destiny 2 and what will change from season to season, and how many seasons players can expect throughout Destiny 2's life cycle. The game is presumably in Season 1 currently, and the panel will also talk about when Season 2 will be set to begin. Seasons are all about keeping players in the game for longer periods of time is the goal for basically all games, so it'll be interesting to see what Bungie has in store in this department for Destiny 2. So, definitely interesting. The thing about this is it's hard to, for at least Destiny, the way the game is set up, it's hard to keep players engaged because everything's about achieving a certain level. And unless these seasons refer to increasing the light cap or the power cap now and adding gear that would be worth like shooting for, that'd probably be the best thing to do to give it that stickier feeling that they're talking about. But that it's just, again, like I talked about it before, but it's hard to do with Destiny because it's a game you buy once and it's there. I mean, they have their DLCs, but a lot of people don't understand that when you're producing like content and you have to keep making content, it becomes an expensive venture, especially when you have to create new models, you're creating new things, you're trying not to reuse assets because people can see that obviously. And it becomes an expensive front to work through, and that's why it's difficult with games like Destiny, because normally it's a thing you buy once and you own it, and people expect like these updates, like how they do with GTA Online. The thing is, GTA Online, they decided when they were going to make the game into what it is, that they were going to work on the fact that not only did GTA 5 sell a fuckload of copies right out the gate, they were going to be willing to sacrifice money to get a community set up, and now a lot of the money that they make is off of their microtransactions with their shark cards, which gives them the freedom to go back into the game and put money into the game to make more content for people to then play and then realize that there's new things that they can buy with money. Either they could unbearably grind for or spend money on in order to get stuff. So, and I'd say a lot of people say Destiny failed to live up to its promise, and I could see that 100%. I understand where they're coming from when they say that. And I think if the game started out, although this would have pissed people off, but if the game started out as something that was subscription-based, where you paid a certain amount of money every month, and they treated it more like an MMO instead of a hybrid between the two, I think we might have gotten something closer to what we wanted to see from Destiny, because they would have had the... Now, again, this isn't guaranteed, because it could be Activision taking the money, pocketing it, and then leaving Bungie a percentage of that to do whatever the fuck they want. But it's definitely, I'd say it's possible that we could see what we wanted to see from Destiny if they had a steady flow of cash like you see with World of Warcraft and games like Final Fantasy XIV and stuff, where you see these huge frequent content updates because they are getting in revenue to allow them to go back and make these. You're getting new models, you're getting new areas, you're getting new pieces of armor, getting new equipment, and all this they can afford to do because they know that if they keep their subscriber base happy, they'll continue to get a solid flow of cash instead of having to worry about releasing a DLC and not knowing exactly how many people are going to be willing to buy it. So I don't know. I'm always wondering what Destiny would have become if it had been a subscription-based service. Again, like I'm saying, it could have been all for naught if Bungie didn't capitalize on it, and then would have pissed off even more people, and it could have done something where it eventually went free to play, like what Elder Scrolls Online did. So we never know.
Elder Scrolls Online did that because when it launched, it was a massive disappointment. It was a single-player game that you could happen to run around with other players in. Destiny was supposed to be, I don't know, some sort of MMO shooter hybrid, and they just kind of failed on all fronts.
Yeah.
I think part of that was Activision stepping in and stepping on things, and I think part of that was just Bungie biting off more than they could chew. Bungie was good at crafting a super detailed, very dense single-player experience, and they had only created a tiny handful of things. They did their old school, 8 and 16-bit computer games. They did a handful, they did a bunch of Halo games. They did one multiplayer game on Xbox that was it was one of those ones where one character is the heavy, one character is the mobile, one character is the sniper, squad-based game that played like a cartoony version of Halo, which I don't even remember what the fuck that was called. That was fun but short, and that was on the first Xbox, and that's all they've really done. So when they jumped into Destiny, I don't think they had an idea of how to craft tight mechanics, but the game was dull. It was boring. The only thing that made it interesting, and it sure as fuck wasn't the single player campaign, was the multiplayer, the raids, the doing stuff with your friends, talking shit, running, the running strikes thing. The only reason I played Destiny for as long as I did was because I linked up with you guys and made friends. I've said that dozens of times. Destiny 2, I enjoyed on my own having fuck all to do with anybody up until the last bit was done. And now it's become like the first one where I'm just doing it because it gives us an excuse to hang out online until they do more content. I still have some enjoyment with it. I still like going in, but it seems like they've intentionally crafted it to be like an exciting experience up to this point, and then, once you finish the single player campaign, it's exciting to do the raid once or twice. And then after that, you check in a few times a week just to raise your light some by running the raid again and doing the milestones, and then you check out. They're not even trying to make it just an ongoingly fun game to play. It's more like, okay, come back for a few hours this week and do this, and then all right, we'll see you next week. Which I don't mind if they at least made the milestone content fun, but it's just more grinding. Which is why I've been considering talking you into coming back into 14 with me.
Yeah, I think if I do that, because it's crossplay, right? I'd rather, because I don't like the fact that I don't like playing with a controller. I'd rather play it with a mouse and keyboard. So if I can manage that, I'll just pick up like a Windows license. But I don't know if that would work. I don't know if the PlayStation worlds are. Oh, okay. That's the case.
I was wondering if I need somebody who has played it on computers so they can explain to me what all those because it's the customization in that game is fucking insane on how much you can customize your interface and what's on screen and how it's presented, but I don't understand what any of it means. And you can fuck shit up really bad, if you go in there and try switching things around without knowing what they are. And I haven't found any comprehensive guides online that speak to people in a manner which, it's like me trying to explain the world of Final Fantasy to someone that's never played an RPG. And the only guides I found online to customizing the screen expects me to have played thousands of hours of thousands of different MMOs already. So I know what all this fucking shit is. I don't know what these fucking terms are. I have no idea what you're talking about. So you're going to tell me how to do this. Talk to me like I've never played an MMO before, because I fucking haven't. The only ones I played are the free ones on PlayStation, and I played like 3 hours of the first Final Fantasy MMO, 11 or whatever the fuck it was back in the day. That's all I've done. So when I go in to try and customize the screen, I don't know what any of this means. I don't know how it's going to present. It's not like some stuff where they give you examples, you hover it, and it's like, this is what this might look like. It doesn't do that. It expects you to already know, and it's not like it comes with a manual.
Yeah.
That's my only complaint, is that game you can do a ton of stuff with. It's gorgeous, and considering it's definitely a last-gen type visuals, it's been up-resed for the PlayStation 4. And I say this, all MMOs are last-gen. When they release a brand new MMO, it's built to run on last-generation technology every single time, because they want it to be played by everyone, and the lowest common denominator is what ties everyone together, which is why Warcraft will run on almost any computer, because it's made to run on the lowest possible modern hardware.
Yeah.
So that way they can get more players. So no matter how gorgeous your game is, they cut a lot of corners so that it doesn't tax the hardware of a computer. So if you really, really fucking squint and get close enough and fuck with things, you can see how the graphics aren't fucking perfect in Final Fantasy. But if you're just playing the game, it's gorgeous and it's so fun to play in, and the worlds are just really, really nice. And even stupid fetch quests, they saturate with story, something relating to what you're doing, what your character's doing. They created this like living, breathing world, and I really kind of like that because the only other MMOs I played, they haven't done that as well. Like I really enjoyed Neverwinter, totally different kind of experience, you know. I've enjoyed Skyforge. That thing's just weird, you know, but I really love Final Fantasy, and I've liked Destiny, but the new one, Destiny 2, is turned into flat soda for me. And them saying, oh, we're doing seasons. Motherfucker, you did that the last year of Destiny. Your little seasons of racing and seasons of this event, and seasons of that event, and having these little things come around and occasionally altering a strike here and there. You did that before. It was, If they did a subscription thing, that I would be all for it. Destiny, I don't think they would need as much. They could still sell the expansions, you know, for what they normally do. Do like a $5 or $10, $5 a month subscription thing, and then give us 2 new strikes a month or a new strike a month. Give us, 4 raids a year. Give us something like that. You got 4 months to craft a really interesting raid. Give us a new location, like a new planet once a year. Just continue expanding the territory that we can go to. Give us a new social space once or twice a year. Create new personalities, new characters, different ways to run quests. Go and talk to fucking Blizzard. They will give you ideas.
Yeah, 100%.
And Blizzard's great they're great at ripping other people off and making it their own.
Exactly. Look at Overwatch.
Perfect.
Yeah. So we'll see what they do. Again, that's October 20th at TwitchCon, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. So I'll be there. I'm going to figure out what the hell's going on, what they plan to do to keep us invested more in this one than they did in the first game. So moving on to the next article. We have, after Final Fantasy spin-offs...
I'll read it.
Oh, okay. Cool. Look at you, stepping
After
forward.
Final Fantasy spin-offs, Square Enix' next VR project might be its most intriguing. This is the spin-offs is what I'm going to come back to talk to later. Square Enix has only shown a slight interest in VR fishing game, but the publisher's unique Project Hikari is one of the most intriguing applications of the tech yet. Unlike a traditional game, Project Hikari is much more passive in nature, adapting manga into an immersive cinematic experience that blends stills, animated scenes, and fully rendered environments. It's called an action comic, guys. Seriously. As a result, Project Hikari feels closer to an anime or film than a traditional manga. However, the Square Enix rep at the events assured... Wait. This sentence is weird. The Square Enix representative at the event assured that the final version will feature additional options for those who prefer to enjoy manga at a slower pace, including the ability to pause and revisit previous scenes. He also told us that new chapters for the VR series would be released episodically, similar to a new volume of manga, although he didn't suggest how much each episode would cost, which is interesting. Square's they've done some good manga. They've done some good anime series. I liked, was it Pandora Hearts or whatnot? I can't remember the name of that one series. Was really interesting.
My first thought when it comes to this...
what they've done in other media.
My first thought... What? You know exactly what I'm thinking about. Give me that... Now, this is... I want to see this adapted into everything. So give me that... Fuck, what's it called? What was that really garbage ass show with the titties in it called? Now I know I just described 30% of all anime, but give me a second. I'm thinking.
Monster Musume?
No.
Freezing had a ton of titties in it.
To Love Ru. Give me that. Give me To Love Ru, right? Or To Love Ru. I don't know how people pronounce it. And then give me that in a VR experience. French. With there you go. It would also be cool to see, like, man, imagine seeing this adapted to everything though. Like reading Boku no Hero in it with a VR headset. That'd be cool as shit. obviously that is thinking well into the realms of impossible, because that is a lot of content to adapt and animate and stuff like that. But it's definitely interesting. I think it sounds really cool.
Well, Action Comics have spoken dialogue sometimes, sound effects. Sometimes they'll have moving scenes. They did a really good one for Dead Space. They had actually an ongoing series of Action Comics before Dead Space 2 came out. They were released promotional, and the way that was done was really interesting. But it was fully voiced, full sound effects, the whole nine, and they would have slight animation, like eyes would move, maybe an arm would move, or a cutout would slide across the screen, that kind of thing. And that was gripping, like you completely lose fact that it's a comic, and you're just watching a show with very little animation.
Yeah.
So that would take a budget. I mean, it wouldn't cost as much as a game, but if you're really going all out, that would be an interesting kind of hybrid. What I would like to see is, didn't they say when they released, and I know this doesn't seem like much, but I've done this before and it's really cool. Wasn't the PlayStation VR and all the other VR headsets supposed to have a theater mode where you could watch like Netflix or Crunchyroll or something like that?
The way it works is it's literally like a theater, whereas this is if you were sitting in a seat and there was a big flat screen in front of you. It's not like what this is, where it's straight up like the whole environment is rendered, so you can look around and you're in like the woods or something, and there's characters walking and they're talking or doing whatever their little amounts of animation. But this is really cool, because this leads into something else that I've heard about, like being in the works, and that's like VR, not necessarily movies, but movie related experiences where you could either watch a scene from a movie or experience a scene from a movie in full 3D, in full 360 VR. I just smacked the mic, my bad. And that sounds cool. Like imagine being in a scene from the next Avengers Infinity War, or even one of the Guardians of the Universe movies. Like, that, remember in 2, in that
Guardians
first,
of the Universe?
Whatever. Guardians of the Galaxy. Shut your mouth. Guardians of the Galaxy. The second one.
That's where I was going with it, man. I think
Yeah.
it'd be cool if you could step into like an anime or something like that, and you turn to your left and Goku's powering up his Kamehameha. You look right and there's Frieza getting ready to do whatever douchebag thing Frieza does. Like, it'd be cool to have, but I mean, first of all, you need a wireless headset, and you'd be falling over shit in the living room or wherever the fuck you're standing. So that doesn't exactly work, because the first thing you're going to want to do is dodge shit and jump around. And I think they could do expansions on things, like you could go into a scene and use your controller and walk around in it or something like that, but it would be little bits and pieces. I don't think they do a whole experience like that. That sounds way too expensive, and that's I mean, with the blocking and figuring out the setting of the stage and and I don't know, man, that's awfully complicated.
Well, they've done stuff like it before. Like, they've had short horror experiences where you're dropped into a room and stuff happens to you, but you're not really impacting the world. It's just you're going through an experience. They have stuff like it. So I don't imagine it being that bad. You just have to get a good company with a decent budget behind it, and you could definitely make some interesting things. And now seeing this, hopefully this will open the door to other things. Like we were talking about, I'd love to see other stuff. Like, even, again, like you said, that I don't know. It sounds super cool. I don't have a VR headset, but the thing with tripping over stuff, like if you look at the Vive does a good job at allowing you to be maneuverable while you're going. It's just we need the better tech and cheaper tech at this point before.
The Vive is expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it
is. There's a give and take to that, though. One of the reasons why the PlayStation has suffered technically, why Xbox has pulled ahead from a technical perspective, not a software perspective, but a technical perspective, is because Microsoft wasn't afraid to dump money into their console or take a hit on the console. With the PlayStation 3, when the big boys came out, the ones that had the backwards compatibility and all the additional features and the multiple card slots, those machines were amazing. And PlayStation, from a tech perspective, hands down on every level, destroyed what the Xbox could do. But it was so difficult to write for that you still have better frame rates and somewhat better visual experiences on a good third of the games on Xbox. Why? And that with anything that was cross-platform, they wrote it for Xbox 9 times out of 10, and then converted it to PlayStation, which is why things like Bayonetta ran at 60 frames per second on Xbox, but 30 on the PlayStation 3. You know, but the problem with the PlayStation was that it was like $600-700 for the big hard drive Fat Boy, and they ripped out essential components and just turned it into a straight PlayStation 3. It couldn't run backwards compatibility to lower the cost. I don't think you should ever run into, if it's a situation where you're either sacrificing quality to get the price lower, or you keep the features that cost more, I think it should cost more. So the only time I would accept a lower cost on something is if I'm not losing experience to do so. Because on a consistent basis, Sony does that. They will cut out features to get something slightly lower. The PS4 Pro doesn't play HD Blu-rays to save $4 on the system. Are you fucking kidding me? Really?
Oh.
What kind of asshole does that? Like, it's the biggest dick move I can think of. They're like, oh, well, you're going to do 4K stream. No, we're not. There's like a tiny handful of services that do 4K streaming. You have to have a gigabit connection to get it to run right. And even then, if your wiring isn't perfect in your house, if you're not wiring like Cat 5e or better, which a lot of houses don't run Cat 5e or better, Cat 6 is optimal, you're not going to get the best experience. You're not going to get what it says. Most of your devices in your house, tablets, smartphones, laptops, even your gaming systems, they don't have wireless connections that can handle the 4K stream perfectly. Most of them do not. Most of your devices are very limited on what their streaming, their speed of data transmission is. They don't tell you this when you buy your internet connection. You go and spend all this money on a gig connection. Most of your devices, or all your devices, can't even do that.
Yeah.
So if you're
when you're talking about the HD, you're referring to 4K DVDs like being playable.
Yeah, the HD Blu-rays, the what are they called? Blu-ray something or another. The ones that are coming out now. Like they Sony decided to try and cut down on costs on the system, so they didn't make it backwards compatible, even though that's easy enough to do.
Yeah.
Because they didn't want it to cost more. They didn't put the better drive in there so that you could play HD Blu-rays are HD, but whatever the Blu-ray Plus is, you can't play those in the PlayStation Pro because, again, they're trying to keep the cost down. Well, you know what? It's true. Gamers are limited, but gamers, the reason that technology, the reason that we are hitting a technical bottleneck right now in terms of what systems are able to do and process and display, the reason why we have the flaws in the systems, and we've had the flaws in the systems since the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, is because the manufacturers have been going, oh, well, nobody wants to spend more than $300-400 on a system, so we've got to try and make it in this. So we're going with the lowest, common bidder, which is why you had all the problems with the Xboxes. You have stuff getting ripped out of systems, which is why the PlayStation 3. The subsequent edition sold better but didn't do nearly as much. Dude, I'd rather you charge me an arm and a leg, me save up for it, and get the best possible experience than to sit there and rip guts out of something so that I can afford it. Because in the long run, I'm going to be happier with it.
You know what you should do then? You should buy a PC.
But the PC doesn't have the same kind of experience that the home systems do. A lot of your stuff gets ported over, but there's a good chunk of games that don't get ported over. And with the PC, every new game that comes out, you have to go in and make adjustments. You have to fix it. You run into technical problems. You don't have nearly as many with home systems because they're optimized to run the games.
I don't know. Maybe in the past, but it's very optimized the way it is now. Like if I were to go and buy a game on Steam and download it, it will download whatever is needed. It will grab the DirectX that it needs and install it to your computer. And then on top of that, the game it scans what your system can do and it automatically sets graphical settings to that level so that you can play something. So say like if I did not have what my computer was, and I went in with like a lower like graphical, like a lower GPU, so something like maybe like a 1070 or like a 990, something like that. The computer will see that, detect that, the game will read that, and then on top the game will set it to like lower medium automatically. Now I understand the fact that with like a console, it's just plug and play, you're good to go. But I'd say that on top of that, I understand where it comes from, but I do feel like
I love consoles, man. I love them, and I talked with Markiplier once, and I only had a few minutes to talk to him. It was kind of like getting
like
in line kind of situation.
Oh, okay.
No, he was. It was just I don't remember what the fucking app was called, but he was doing this thing where you could come in and you could talk to him.
Cool.
And I asked him
like Omegle?
What kind of issues because he only does computer gaming. He doesn't do consoles at all.
Okay.
And I told him that I was a console gamer and why I was a console gamer in brief. And I asked him what kind of issues you run into as a computer gamer. And he mentioned my exact concern, which is quite frequently when he goes to do recordings or streams or whatnot, he runs into constant technical problems. He constantly has to go in, troubleshoot, and support his hardware and software. He has to go in and make settings. Now, as a caveat, he did say that there's a lot of additional complications he has to deal with that a standard just a gamer doesn't have to deal with because he's got additional components and so on and things running through various pieces of software and hardware. But that is the part that I like having a console. I like the convenience of the console. I like not having to install things or buy additional hardware. And I would rather just buy a top-of-the-line console and it run its 7-year lifespan and then move on to the next one. Then now, because of what happened to the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, because of the technical problems that they had, because of the deficiencies within the systems, and you don't have custom hardware anymore. That was one of the most fascinating and interesting things about the console wars of generations past, is because all of these devices were custom built. The chipsets were custom built. The systems were custom built. Writing software for multiple systems was difficult because it was written completely different for different things. This is true. But you had more console exclusives because of that. It was a more interesting experience. I'm not a big Genesis fan, but there was a lot of really cool stuff that came out on Genesis and a lot of really cool stuff that came out on Super Nintendo. A lot of cool stuff on Saturn because Saturn was a 2D beast versus the more 3D oriented stuff that came out on the PlayStation. I really enjoyed a culture where there was vast differences between the systems and they had their strengths and weaknesses. And now we're turning into this homogenized, dull digital culture, and I just it's not exciting the way it is now. It's more or less like, you pick one, you pick the other, meh, it makes a little bit of a difference, but not much. All you're paying attention to now is console exclusives, and it's dull. And I mean, it's great for the industry, but I don't really feel like it's as exciting for us. The conversations we had at work or on playgrounds about whose system was better, what series was better, convincing people to come over to your side or getting drafted to their side. It was they used to have hundreds of magazines, really interesting ones. Now, I read at least 5 or 6 different gaming magazines. I remember being excited every month, reading through and looking at new leaps in technology and what different systems were doing, and these new games that were coming out and the technology they were pushing. And it's just not nearly as exciting now. And it's not because I'm older. It's because everyone's kind of doing the same thing. And that's,
Now,
it's just...
What would you say to the argument that that I've heard from, at least instead of console going to PC, but PC going to console, that the console market, and now I'm not going to lie that, although it's that gap is getting shorter and shorter all the time, it's probably close now to being the same, but that console has more users than PC, which is still probably a higher number, but
by a lot. It's by a lot. But
what would you say to what would you say to the argument that consoles have slowed down the evolution of gaming. Now, let me explain what I'm trying to get to. The fact that with your explaining, like we're saying, the way consoles run is since they're a budgetary form of gaming. It's a way you buy something, it works no matter what. You come home, you can play a game, and you know that when a new game comes out, if it's coming out for that console, it works. Now, because they are the major moneymaker, when games are usually made, they're made in the efforts of keeping console players happy. So what would you say to the fact, or not the fact, but the opinion that people think that because of this, and because games have to be set to a console that is supposed to run a 7-year lifespan, that the improvement of gaming has been dragged down by console gaming because they have to dumb down games, at least graphically, to a point where it could sit on a console that has been out for 5 to 6 years already. Because that does happen. We see a lot of the times where you'll go to E3. Now. You'll see where... No, I'm talking about in our current generation. I'm not talking about older, because I will agree that the whole console idea and home gaming is what revitalized the video game market back when Nintendo decided to market it as a toy. And we've moved into what we are today because of the early gaming generation and their advancements. I'm not going to push that aside and say that didn't happen. But I've heard that in the past generation and this generation, you see all the time, well, not all the time, but you see quite often where you see a game that is made in a PC build that is presented at E3. A lot of the games that they present at E3 are PC builds of a game because that's where they make their games. They make them on computers. And then what happens is they are then converted to something that will run on a console and then dumbed down to hold somewhat their graphic fidelity, and on top of that be able to actually run on a console and then are released. But the thing that they do that I find dumb is then after that, they will then port that version of the game onto the PC market in order to be played on a PC. And then at that point, you're left with a game that has been dumbed down once and then just shifted over, kind of.
That doesn't happen as frequently as you think it does. They got busted on that for that one sequel, that shitty game.
Well, no, it happened. If you look at E3,
Hacker. Do you remember?
If you look at E3 presentations, more often than not, from an E3 presentation that is presented on a PC build, it is almost always like one example is like Rainbow Six Siege. When that game was shown off at E3, it was shown off on a PC build. And it did that, it did that cringy ass shit where they had like the fake players and everyone was like somewhat talking to each other, but it was all scripted. I don't even want to talk about that. That shit gets me cringy as hell.
I've seen the videos. Well, Kyle, the one thing you don't understand or you're not recognizing is that 9 times out of 10, they either develop them in tandem for both platforms. It's built on a PC with the idea to be able to run on the lower systems. Now, unlike the one that Ubisoft did with that one fucking hacking game that I can never remember the name of.
Watch Dogs.
What was it? Watch Dogs 2. Watch Dogs 2 has
that got the beef.
No, it's the second one. The second one had
the first one.
Was it? No, you're right. No, you're right. You're right. Because the assets were in there for the computers. The manufacturer did something that other manufacturers don't do. When you get these systems, because it used to be the PC market and the console market were two very separate markets, and there wasn't a shit ton of crossover. There was some crossover. You got your Donkey Kongs or your Final Fantasies would have a PC port of sorts, but since the games were console game, not computer games, console games designed for the sole purpose of being on console, as an afterthought, they're like, well, let's bring it over to computer. So they brought them over to computer, and you got a slightly up-res version of those games. The Final Fantasy VII that you buy on the store on the Sony PlayStation Store is the PC version. It's not the original PlayStation 1 version. It's the PC version that you're playing. So it looks slightly better. So the textures are a little bit better. Et cetera, is a little bit better. The polygons are slightly smoother, so on and so forth. But the industries were separate. You had a whole bastion of different kinds of games with deeper capabilities and such that were released on computers, and a shitload of like first-person shooters. Computers had 3D capability long before the home systems did, so on and so forth. The polygons, like all of that, was much farther advanced on computers, and it was a totally different market. If you went into like a Babbage's or an electronics store that had a focused computer section, you'd have walls and walls of these boxes with these games that with these tight, detailed sprite graphics or polygonal graphics that you just did not see on the home systems. Very different markets, and there was only a little bit of saturation that bled over between the two. You get dumbed down computer games on your consoles once in a while, like Doom or Quake or so on, and occasionally you'd have something like Croc or whatever that would carry over onto computers. Or Glover, for instance, but that was infrequent. It wasn't constant. There was a very small area of titles, that were on both markets. And as about the time of PlayStation 3, near the end of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360's lifespan, you started seeing these two markets really bleed into each other. When that x86 architecture blew up, it's when you really saw it go from being a clear, advancing concept of that the software market was completely blending and spilling over between the two areas into it's almost one market now. It's not quite there, but it's like 75-80% there. If it's on the home console, there's a good chance it's on computer. There's a lot of stuff on computer that they just don't do for home console because it's way too complicated, and it would be way too much lost so that the experience wouldn't be good enough. Like Star Citizen, they announced they have no intention of porting it to home systems. There's a lot of stuff that still comes out on computer that doesn't bleed over because you just can't do it on the home systems and give a quality experience. Whereas the home system stuff, it's easier to bring that over to computers because if you design it for the home system, the computers can definitely run it. When they design these games on computers, they design them on a computer in a PlayStation environment. They don't design it to play on the computer.
That's what I'm
If it is
pointing out.
Hold on, I'm not done. With your example, for instance, Watch Dogs, most companies
I didn't say Watch Dogs.
do not. Well, I'm giving you an example of Watch Dogs. Watch Dogs, they did exactly what you described. They created on computers. They had all these assets, all these higher res textures and lighting and all this stuff. And then when they ported it to consoles from that original computer environment, they designed it to run on computer. They didn't design it to run on both. They designed it for one environment, carried it over to the other environment, and so that console players, because the consoles were just coming out. The new generation consoles were just coming out when that game dropped. So when they sold it on the system, on the computers, they locked those higher res textures and stuff out.
Yeah.
So that you had an experience similar to the home console, so that console players wouldn't bitch. Well, most console players still bitch about the differences between computer graphics and a home console graphics because most of your companies do not do that. Most systems can't compete anywhere near. None of the systems can compete with what a desktop can do. And these desktop machines, when you have a game that is created for all markets, they have higher res textures for the computer systems almost always. The situation you're talking about where you're losing fidelity on the computer market because of the console market it's the exception, it's not the rule. And that is consistent across the board because I have two friends that almost exclusively play computer, and one of them builds computers and makes gaming systems for people. So I constantly talk to him about stuff like this because he knows it better than I do by leagues. He knows more about it than Hector's friend Nick, who is one of the ones that's given him a ton of advice on building a system. And Nick is a PC gamer through and through, and he knows his stuff too. And this guy knows more than Nick. This guy's a career PC guy. He has a PS4, but he barely ever touches it. And most games, even if they're created multi-platform, if they're released on a computer, are built to run at maximum ability on a computer and fuck the consoles. The only time that you run into situations that you're talking about is when the game is intended for consoles and they're like, all right, well, we'll release it on computers too. Let's do the console part first. So they do the game for the console and then they port it from consoles to computers, like they did with Arkham Knight, and they fucked that one up.
Yeah, it's
But
happened
when
with
it's
other
made
games.
for all, it does happen, but
like
I don't
the arcade
believe
games.
on any stretch that it happens enough to hold back the industry. No, I don't believe that by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm not saying
they
that
wouldn't have all of those assets.
I'm saying not holding back the industry. I'm referring to the fact that devs are having to bottleneck projects based on the specs that they are not necessarily being forced, but have to adhere to if they want, because it's obviously a business. You want to make as much money as possible, so you're developing for as many, so the game can be played as many ways as possible. Now, a lot of the times, work won't even go into a higher spec version or something because they'll stick to, like you said, they'll do it with MMOs. It also applies to games that, like, even recently, I wonder what game it was. It was one of the games they showed at E3. One of the developers, as developers do, they bitch. One of the developers was bitching about the fact that they're, as well as making a game, they're making a game for a 5-year-old PC when they were referring to the PlayStation. What game was it? Fuck.
I think I read that.
Let me see if I could find it while we talk about it. But again, I'm not trying to blame anything, because like I said, I agree that the origin of all gaming came from home systems, because that's what blew it up into what it is today. It's just, you see downgrades happen from E3, from other things. It happens often where, and again, that's, if you look at, well, Andromeda's a special case because it's a piece of fucking shit. But if you looked at Andromeda's initial gameplay trailers, again, they were done on a build that was then dropped down so they could apply to the lowest common denominator, and then the rest of the specs that were designed to generate hype were then tossed. It happens a lot. But the, what's his name? Oh, here, I found it. So it is... During EA E3's press conference, A Way Out looks like a promising title, but from the team behind Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, the co-op adventure game offers asymmetrical drama filled with prison breaks and male bonding. Its developer, Joseph Fares, has been given out interviews about his studio's new game. In a chat with Engadget, Fares was talking about displaying his game on PS4 and all the advantages that it supposedly had. Fares says there aren't any, really. Do you want the honest truth? This machine, the PS4, is not as strong as you think, Fares says. This is like a 5-year-old PC. If consoles were as powerful as PCs are today, you would see all different types of games. Most of the work developers put out there is to make them work on consoles. He seems to suggest that optimization efforts for consoles slows down game development, while the specs themselves bottleneck developers, stopping them from doing what they really want. While consoles have similar architecture to PC these days, it's clear that there is still a huge gap in terms of power, even with these mid-generation upgrades. In fact, rather than jumping to a proper new generation, developers need to make sure games run on vanilla PS4 and Xbox One, while aiming specifically at the PS4 here. The Xbox One was even more underpowered, and that's what developers will still need to aim for, despite the existence of the Xbox One X.
It depends entirely on their business model.
Because although it's expensive, we all know developing games are expensive, and sitting side by side and developing two entirely different builds of a game is quite a big endeavor, when you can easily just develop for the lowest common denominator, and then at that point you're looking at creative drawbacks for things that might have been able to have been done on a higher spec system compared to something that has to be held back. Like, I even in Spec Ops: The Line, which was a really good game if you like games that mess with your mind. There was one section. There's this dude I watch. His name's like RaceFic. He does really awesome videos on YouTube. You guys should check him out if you're listening. But he was talking about one of the sections of the game, because of the fact that it was being designed for the 360, which was not the strongest system. They were having a section where they talked about things that they wanted to do look, so there's one section where you're being held back by enemies, and the idea is you're supposed to run, but there's areas that look like you can explore and fight out the situation. But he said that because of the restrictions that they had on what they were working with, they had to set it to where you're being held in one place and eventually you run away after you fight off a certain amount of enemies, blah, blah, blah. And he said he had a whole nother idea that he wanted the story to go and have a different section in this game for writing that. But because of rollbacks that they had to make, because of certain things they could not do, the creative team had to just give up. They couldn't perform that. Now, again, this isn't bad.
That's been a common console complaint of every generation, Kyle. Nintendo developers, when they look back and talk about games they made for the NES, the Super NES, for the Saturn, the Dreamcast, for any of those machines, they're constantly saying, we wanted to do this, but the hardware wouldn't let us do that because they're used to, making something on a PC and coming up with these ideas, and then they get the full release of the hardware specs, or they're like, okay, we want to do this, and they try and do it, but the system can't do it. That's been consistent. That's always been there. That complaint has always been there. Even when the markets were completely divided, that complaint has been there. Your consoles aren't slowing down anything. The only problem that we have is that console developers have decided to go with the cheapest possible hardware. Well, excuse me. They used to custom build machines to do awesome shit. Then they'd take a hit on the machines and just upcharge on the software to make up for the difference. Or they'd upcharge on the peripherals or so on and so forth. And gamers notoriously don't buy peripherals. We just don't do it. We buy an extra controller so we can do 2-player games, but that's about all we do. Multi-taps and CD add-ons and VR and shit like that. We want it, but we just don't budget for it because games cost too damn much. So eventually we'll get it, if we really want it, but either that or we'll do without. We just want the console, we want the controllers, we move on with our lives. We're not peripheral people. We never have been. That culture is slowly changing, but I don't think we're ever going to be a peripheral heavy people. Like Sega has proven time and time again that peripherals barely sell. Nintendo released record amounts of peripherals for the NES especially and the Super NES, and that shit didn't sell either. I'd love to have Bob, that robot, just to put on a shelf, but I'd never fucking use the thing on an old NES. It only works for 2 games anyway.
What do peripherals have to do with the lack of specs?
People are willing to spend money on consoles, but now you have a culture that our culture exists around whining and complaining about shit. This conversation, for example, we just constantly complain about stuff. So when something comes out, we don't want to buy it. It's too much. We want to spend like $300-$400 at most. What is the first thing they talk about when a handheld unit comes out? What's the price point going to be? Well, I don't want to spend more than $200 or $300. I don't want to spend. Every one of the journalists is saying it. All the people reading it are saying it. What I'm saying is, I fucking don't care how much it costs. I'll make it work. All right? I will invest in the system, but make it a system that actually fucking works. Because this time, they had the ability to make stronger systems. Sony took a risk with the PS3, and they went above and beyond and created a beast. The problem is the fucking architecture and how to write for it. That was their biggest problem. I mean, if they would have fucking sucked it up and taken the hit on console sales, if they would have made a better, easier to write for, because you could have still had all the components it had and not made it impossible to fucking write for. That was their misstep, was it made it so difficult to write for. And because of that mistake, they blamed everything on all of the on the PS3 as a whole. So they used that as an example of what not to do. So when they made a new system, all the cool abilities that we expected it to have weren't there, because they didn't think people would want to pay the extra money because we bitched about the cost. They didn't think that we'd use this asset or that asset that was a part of the system because we bitched about the cost. So the whole industry looked at what happened to the PS3, which was the leading technology thing at the time, even though it was being beaten by the Xbox, because the Xbox was A, cheaper, big thing, B, easier to write for. So because of those two factors alone, the PS3 lost that race. Even though it was a better system overall, it didn't matter. And that was the proof in the pudding. So now they made a system that was below what they could have done because it was affordable and easy to write for. And because the two developers did that and they homogenized into basically just a low-level PC between the two of them, that's what we're running into. That is the problem. It's not because consoles are holding anything back on the way that you're talking about, but the reason why we have so many grumbling developers is because they could have had much better hardware to work on, but they didn't because everyone went for a lowest common denominator. But even with a normal PC-only title, you still have lowest common denominator settings, but you have assets and writing in there to support higher level hardware. And they easily have the ability to still do that when they have a port of a console thing come over. The only reason they don't is because they choose not to spend the money and the time on it. It's their choice. It has nothing to do with the consoles and everything to do on the effort a developer is willing to put into the PC title. And if they made it just for PC, they would still make the same damn choice. They would still do it.
That's quite an assumption to make because developing a game is quite an expensive ordeal in itself. And I don't know the fact that just saying that because
this is coming from 30 years of watching game developers, of paying close attention to the news and watching what they say. Nothing they're saying now is anything they haven't said before. Even when they were like PC only developers, they would still complain about having to create for higher level hardware, about having, because you're essentially writing a base game and then writing these additional layers over the entire game to run at different hardware settings. And that takes time and it takes effort, which is why some PC games look better than others. I don't believe for a second that it's all that different than it ever has been. They're always going to be complaining. The biggest insult to the current console generation is they had the ability to do better and they chose not to. But I don't believe that slows down PC gaming or gaming in general whatsoever. If anything, the more restrictions you have, the harder you work to make an inventive and ingenious game. Some of the best games that are all-time classics are awesome because and you and I have had this discussion in various ways before. When they ran into limitations, that's when we got some of the most interesting mechanics in games because they found ways to work around it. And sometimes it was accidental, like Space Invaders. The reason the difficulty gets worse and worse as it goes along is because there was less stuff on screen to take up memory, so it ran faster. It was a side effect. It wasn't intentional.
All right. Good talk. It'll probably be our main topic because we talked for fucking 40 minutes. But if you're listening, let us know what you think. What do you guys think about this idea when it comes to stuff like that? Yeah. So we're not even done with our notes. I got a couple more things. We're gonna blow through them real quick because we're already over time. So PlayStation Live announces a tease. They might have some big game announcements for the Paris Games Week event. There's a Sony briefing that'll be going on, which will be held on October 30th. The show will kick off at 3 p.m. GMT in Paris, which is 8 a.m. Pacific time and 11 a.m. Eastern time in America. For Australians, the show kicks off at 2 a.m. AEST on Halloween, time of the spook. So we'll see what they mean. We still got a couple things. We might see some more Spider-Man. Might see what's it called? Last of Us 2, something along those lines. Some maybe more God of War. No idea, but always interested to see what Sony has to drop, especially because they've been absolutely fucking kicking ass with the exclusives this generation. So, final thing, we're gonna have a new somewhat segment. This is just gonna be called Games to Look For. And it will be at the start of every month. We'll basically give you guys some of the more provincial games that will be coming out. You guys have something to look forward to every month. So for the month of October, we have October 5th, which is already passed. It is Stardew Valley coming to the Switch. On the 13th, we have The Evil Within 2 to the PS4, Xbox One, and PC. On the 24th, we have Destiny 2 coming to the PC. And on October 27th, we have both Assassin's Creed Origins. Actually, we have three. We have Assassin's Creed Origins for PS4, Xbox One, PC, Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus for PS4, Xbox One, PC, and Super Mario Odyssey coming to the Switch on the 27th. On October I missed this one somehow. On October 10th, we have Middle-earth: Shadow of War to PS4, Xbox One, and PC. And October 20th, the 20th or 24th? It's either 20th or 24th. We have Fire Emblem Warriors coming to the Switch. So, you guys have some awesome games to look forward to. I am super excited for Evil Within, Stardew Valley, Assassin's Creed, fuck out of here, Wolfenstein 2, Super Mario Odyssey, and Fire Emblem Warriors. I do not give a shit about Shadow of War or Assassin's Creed. What about you, Shawn? You got anything that you are excited for?
No.
Not really?
No, not really. No. Next year.
Oh, yeah,
I'm excited
definitely.
for that, for the
next
the
year's
anime
gonna be...
for Persona.
Oh, yeah. Next year's going to be a good
related.
year. I'm super excited. This year has been fucking fantastic for video games. We've had a lot of really fantastic games and a lot of flops too, which is interesting. So it's definitely a very awesome year in gaming. 2017 will be good and remembered for quite some time. And for the last thing, before we head off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to... we do have a question from Sam Harris that I was going to make the main topic, but we got on our tangent, which I will now make the main topic. So, from Sam Harris, I've been listening to a lot of video gaming podcasts that have been discussing PUBG for Game of the Year. What are your guys' thoughts? So, what do you think, Shawn, about PUBG as a possible Game of the Year?
I don't think any competitive shooter... I don't know, man. I think if you're going to do Game of the Year, I don't think games limited to, PC platforms or limited to competitive should ever count as a Game of the Year. I don't play those type of games. I'm not a competitive player. That kind of stuff doesn't interest me. So you're cutting out a huge chunk of audience. And I mean, gaming has kind of moved towards either you're competitive or you're a single player. But I think if you're going to do Game of the Year, if you're not going to delineate between the two, then I don't think that I don't support competitive games as Game of the Year under any circumstance ever.
Okay.
That's annoying to me.
Now, I think the interesting thing about Game of the Year is we've had it break apart into a bunch of different awards that they do award for Game of the Year. Now, the thing with PUBG is it is still in early access, and I think that automatically, we were talking about it, I think it automatically removes it from the standings for Game of the Year. But on idea alone, I think PUBG is an interesting competitor because it's so big. And that alone, I think, is really cool that it's just made such a shocking move in the community. And I think the same thing could be said with what happened with Overwatch last year. Again, it's a multiplayer-only experience, but because it was so big and it made such a big shockwave in the community, it was considered for Game of the Year just because there were so many people that loved it. And I think we're kind of seeing that repeat this year because, again, it's a competitive-only game, except Overwatch, I think, is better because it's actually got more... It's not just a battle royale game. It's got effort put into actually like a world and story and lore put behind
I could accept
what you're doing.
That. It's got more depth, I don't think that just a battle shooter, I don't think that should qualify. It either should be a single player experience or cooperative experience. It should have a lot more that's gone into it than just an interesting system for battling other players. I don't know, man. That just doesn't interest me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but I also see the fact that with Game of the Year is that it not only shows something that was a masterpiece in the form of writing or anything along those lines, or was just a lot of effort was put into some sort of soundtrack, but it also kind of shows that something that made waves. It was the game of the year. Now, I understand some people will see it more of an award that holds prestige in the fact that it's something that had effort put into it in the ways of writing, like we've seen before with other games that have been awarded Game of the Year, or in the way of music or the way of sound design. But the way that we've seen Game of the Year awards break up, I could see PUBG winning something just on the capital alone that it's accrued because it's so fucking big. Like, the fact that so many people are playing this game, it will be something that will be remembered into the future just because people that were in this year and were gamers, it was plastered all over the place. Like with what happened with Overwatch. I don't think Overwatch...
I still don't think it's a cultural touchstone, man. If you're going to be Game of the Year, you have to be a cultural touchstone for that year. Not just something that's popular, but something that's created a memory in the gaming community as a whole. Things like Last of Us do that. Halo does that. You know, series that are a legend for that year. But PUBG is not a legend for that year.
Yeah.
Overwatch is going to be remembered long after it was played. I bet you odds, dollars to donuts, that if somebody talks about PUBG, it's going to be like, remember that one game we used to play, PUBG? Yeah, that was pretty cool, man. So anyway, like, that's about all you're fucking going to hear. Like, I just don't see that having the same gravity.
Yeah, no, I feel you. I think it also depends on, because we don't know how crazy the community is about the game. I've played it a bit, but I'm not in the community. But if it's got a community of people that love the game to death, which can exist for any game, and the fact that the community is so large, it could be something that would leave a cultural impact just because it's accrued such a loving fan base. And I don't know. I'm not indebted into it enough where I can say here or there. And but that's kind of my opinions on it. I think with the way Game of the Year is, it could win something. Some games I don't feel are worth a piece or worth a second look at win Game of the Year just because they had something that they did excellently. So it might win something. Again, I don't know if it's automatically denounced because it's still in open access or early access, whatever the hell it's called. But those are just our thoughts on it. So we have gone over, I don't know how far, because I have to make like 8 cuts in this podcast to make it sound good for you guys and your beautiful ears. But I want to... I have a stupid idea. I was thinking of an outro, and I think I know what I'm going to read, but it sounds like a dumb idea. Let me see if I could find it real quick.
I'd like to talk about Square at some point. There's a thing that they've been doing that they're planning on doing that I am very upset about.
Okay. Well, again, I don't want to make these too much longer than 2 hours. I know we've done it before, but if it's something that's big, we might want to save it for another episode. Fuck, I won't do it. I need to sit down and write an outro that is worthy of all of you people listening. Something, I don't know, something good, but I can't think of anything right now. I had an idea, but it sounds cringy, so I'm not going to do it. So, one final time, thank you all for tuning in. This was episode 22 of the Thought Patrol podcast. We need to think of something to do for our half a year podcast, which we're quickly getting to. We're all about celebrating stupid shit, so we're going to do something special for half a year. If you guys like what you hear, like our content or our banter, feel free to subscribe, to head over to our YouTube channel where we have more content. If you guys are interested, feel free to join our Discord, hit us up, let us know what you think of us, or if you just want to stop by and say hi, we'll be happy to hear from you. Anything that you heard in this podcast that got you heated or interested, feel free to have discussions below in the comments. We would love to hear with you. And man, if you send me a paragraph that talks about why PUBG's Game of the Year, I'm gonna read it and I'll respond to you. I want to hear what you guys think. We want to know what the people tuning in and who you guys are as people. So, finally, if you want to connect with us on any of our socials, it will be in the description below. And yeah, so Shawn, let me hear that beautiful statement you like to bless us with.
Hugs and kisses and all your pink parts.
Indeed. You all have a fantastic week, and thank you for tuning in.